talk, and it's so important to have. How did you get unstuck? How did you get out of that rut?
Well, with burnout, I mean, it's hard. Like for me, the modalities that have worked is like, therapy is like really helpful. Having someone to talk to, having friends who I've, have been in the same place that I can talk to and collaborate with. Those are some of the important ones for me. Meditation was really important.
Did you get there on your own, or did you have friends be like, Justin, bro, you're not looking good?
Yeah, no, it was more like on my, knowing that there was a problem, and the metacognitive side was like, oh, you need to figure out how to solve this problem.
Yeah. Well, I think that's lucky, because one of the downsides to fame or fortune, you look at the, tragic Tony Hsieh,
it's easy to get surrounded by people who are like maybe just telling you what you want to hear.
Yeah, you get people who are on the payroll. You don't get a lot of people who are willing or, have the courage enough to say, bro, this is not a healthy path. I think maybe there's a lot of people who are in that boat, and trying to figure out how to navigate super choppy waters.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like a lot of introspection on like what are the things that, so the big thing was realizing for myself that like I had tied my ego to the outcomes and to startups, right? And like I was always so like engrossed in like being successful that I wasn't.
So like that was your worth, your identity.
Exactly, that was my worth, my identity. But then when things weren't going well, I felt worthless. And things are always gonna not go well at some point. So for me, having that realization and then realizing, okay, how do I want to live in the world? Like, how do I want to be in the world? And the way that I wanted to be was maybe that had worked for me to some extent because I've become successful, but maybe that's not what I wanted to carry with me moving forward. And for me, then the question was, how do I counteract that? I know that's my impulse, that's my instinct, but maybe I can create things to make me choose differently. And so there were a bunch of tactics, but like gratitude journal and meditation, exercise, and all of those things helped me shift my context. So it was more about what am I doing every day that I love versus am I living my life for extrinsic reasons.
One of the major golden nugget lessons here is that you had to sort of, I don't want to say fail, because what's that saying? Sometimes you win and sometimes you learn.
Yeah.
You were doing a ton of learning.
Exactly. I'm an expert at learning.
Right? Yeah. But you sort of had to, like in the eyes of other people, let's say, the perception, you had to sort of fail or not do that great in order to flesh out the bigger idea, which became Twitch, which was probably your payday.
Yeah.
That's a super important lesson, because, maybe what other people say, or maybe how you're measuring success, a lot of people quit too soon. I remember in high school I read that book, that Napoleon Hill book, Think and Grow Rich. It's kind of a popular book among high school students, maybe college students. Yeah. And the one story that I remember from that book is the story of this gold miner in the late 1800s, the gold rush to California. Yeah. And they tell the story of this guy who came out and he was panning for gold, and he had this mine, and he was working at it, and he was digging. I think he dug for, I don't want to say more than 5 years, but it seems like a long time he was digging. And he found nothing, and he ultimately just gave up, abandoned the mine, left to try to find gold somewhere else. Someone else comes along, repopulates his mine, gets it going, and within like 3 feet of digging finds Sutter's Mill, the biggest gold mine in the history of the world. And so the lesson there is he quit too soon. And you never know when you're 3 feet from gold.
I think that's true, and that's what kills startups, right? Is when people quit because they're burned out, they're discouraged, they don't know what else to do.
Yeah. So maybe impart some advice. How do we measure that? How do we know? It's so difficult, right?
So I think it's really hard to say. Like, obviously there's a lot of survivorship bias in that story, right? Like there's probably other people who quit and then someone repopulated the mine, they didn't find any gold.
Yeah, it was luck, right?
So there's luck, but what I would say is, so the rules of like when to quit or not, it's really situational dependent in terms of like the actual tactical, situation. But what I would say is, if you are intrinsically motivated instead of extrinsically motivated, you will want to do it more and stay with it, right? And by extrinsic motivations are like, I want to get rich, I want to be famous. I want, even like missionary ones, like I want to change the world with this idea. That's an extrinsic motivation. And when things are hard, you're gonna be like, oh, why am I doing this? If it's intrinsic, it's like, hey, I'm showing up to work and I love doing this every day. Like if you love digging in a gold mine every day, you're gonna do it even if there's no gold in that gold mine.
That's right.
Now that might be hard because I don't know, digging a gold mine might not be easy for everyone. But in a startup, the people who I see that go the furthest, they find intrinsic motivation and joy in what they do. So that could be like, I love to manage my team. I love to sell and talk to my customers. I love to work on the product and engineering. Some set of those things, those are things you have to do in the startups. You might not be all of those things that you love, but it's gonna be hopefully at least one of them that you love.
Yeah, and you're in good company with that advice, because that's Steve Jobs said the same thing, right? Yeah. He said you have to love what you do, otherwise you'll burn out, you'll quit,
Yeah, and it's not just like, a lot of people say, oh yeah, I love what we do because the mission is to save the world in X, Y, and Z way, and that's very noble, I applaud that. But I mean, like, love what you do every day. Like, what's the thing you're gonna do today that you're gonna wake up and be like, I get to do that? Like, I love to make content, right? And like making content, that excites me, energizes me, so I wanna get out of bed and make content. Yeah. But if I was doing it as a job and I didn't like it, that would be horrible, right? And I would be very demotivated to do it.